The train station hummed with 1,000 stories colliding at once, voices tangled in echoes, the metallic rattle of luggage wheels dragging across the cold floor, and somewhere, a child's laughter breaking into the air like a fragile truth. Amid the chaos, she stood still. Her red scarf fluttered in the draft like a wounded flame. The announcement board flickered uncertainly above her, letters shifting from delayed to on time, as if even the universe couldn't decide what should come next. Claire's fingers tightened around the handle of her small, gray suitcase, the kind that looked ordinary but felt heavy with the silence of years. Her knuckles trembled faintly, betraying her calm face. She watched the crowd but wasn't really seeing them. She was searching for a ghost that had once walked this very platform. The scent of coffee drifted from a nearby kiosk. Somewhere behind her, a man cursed softly when his ticket slipped through the crack in the vending machine. The ordinary world pulsed on, oblivious to the storm twisting quietly inside her chest. A sound cut through it, a distinct click. A wristwatch, ticking faintly. Her eyes fell to the man, seated a few benches away, reading a newspaper. His watch had a cracked glass face. The second hand jumped unevenly, stuttering like a broken heartbeat. Her breath caught. For a moment, the sound pulled her backward. To another time. Another version of her. She looked away quickly, but her reflection in the glass wall wouldn't let her go. There it was, the same expression she wore the night everything fell apart. The same silent promise, buried behind tired eyes. Train 206 to Havenfield, departing in 10 minutes. The announcement sliced through the haze. Claire's grip on the suitcase loosened. She looked down at her wrist, bare. The faint tan line where her own watch once sat was still there, a pale ring of memory. She used to believe time could heal anything. Now she knew better. Some moments don't pass. They circle back, sharper each time. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, he's here. The message was simple. Cold. Certain. She exhaled slowly, her chest tightening like the calm before lightning. Her gaze drifted across the platform, scanning the faces again. Fathers waving, lovers embracing, strangers passing by. Each one looked harmless, but she knew better than to trust what looked ordinary. The red scarf brushed her lips as she stepped forward, blending into the motion of the crowd. Somewhere a whistle blew. The cracked watch ticked again, louder this time. And Claire knew. This wasn't the beginning of her escape. It was the beginning of her hunt. The train hissed as it slowed into the station, wheels screeching against metal. Claire stepped back slightly, her red scarf brushing against her face. Around her, people moved with purpose. Families embracing, lovers running into each other's arms, friends shouting over the noise. She stood at the center of it all, motionless, as if her world had been paused while everyone else's kept playing. Her eyes drifted toward a young girl hugging her father tightly, her small suitcase dangling from her hand. Claire blinked hard. The sight stung, because once, long ago, she had been that girl. She could still hear her father's voice, calm but stern. You don't have to be the strongest, Claire. Just be the one who survives. He said it the day he left. His old leather suitcase, the one that used to smell of tobacco and rain, was the same gray as the one she now carried. She never threw his away. The scuffs on its surface were identical to the ones she used to trace with her fingers when she missed him. She kept it not because of the memories it held, but because of what it reminded her to never forget. That survival had a cost. Her breath trembled as she adjusted the handle. The suitcase was filled with little more than clothes and an old photograph, her father's arm around her mother, both smiling in a time before everything fractured. Sometimes she wished she could unsee that happiness, because now it only made the silence sharper. Train 206 to Havenfield boarding now. Claire's heart skipped. She looked up, across the platform. The man with the cracked watch was still there. He hadn't moved. His newspaper was folded neatly beside him, untouched. His gaze met hers, steady, unblinking. For a split second, she thought she recognized something in him. Not his face, but the stillness. That same heavy calm her father had before walking away for the last time. She tore her gaze away and stepped toward the train. A gust of cold air swept through the station. Her scarf lifted again, catching on the edge of a nearby bench. She turned to pull it free, and in that brief pause, saw the man rise from his seat. The cracked watch caught the light, glinting like a warning. Claire froze, one hand gripping the scarf, the other tightening around the handle of her suitcase. Passengers brushed past her, muttering apologies, but her mind was miles away, somewhere between memory and danger. He was walking toward her now. Slowly, deliberately. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Don't leave yet. Claire's pulse stumbled. The train doors slid open behind her with a mechanical sigh. She should move. She should run. But instead, she hesitated. And in that hesitation, the hunt began to close in. Rain began without warning. Soft at first, a whisper against the glass roof of the platform, then heavier, a steady rhythm that muffled the announcements and blurred the edges of everything. Claire stood at the threshold of the train, one foot on the step, the other rooted to the ground. He was closer now, the man with the cracked watch. Claire Whitman. His voice was calm, too calm, like a question rehearsed 1,000 times. She didn't answer. Her gaze slipped to the droplets collecting on his coat, tracing the worn edges of the fabric, the frayed cuff where his sleeve had been repaired by hand. A man who'd known struggle, not luxury. His shoes were scuffed, one lace torn. In his hand, he carried a wallet, barely held together by tape. When he reached into it to pull something out, a ticket, maybe, a photograph fell loose, landing face up on the wet floor. A young girl, blonde, laughing. Something inside Claire faltered. She bent down, fingertips brushing the photo before he could. The image trembled in her shaking hand. Your daughter. He hesitated, then nodded once. Was? The word hung there, heavy as thunder. Claire's throat tightened. She'd heard grief in voices before, but this was something else, an emptiness that sounded too familiar. The same kind of hollow she'd carried for years. Rain trickled down her scarf, soaking it to a darker red. The sound of a storm grew louder, wrapping the station in a strange quiet. People rushed past, their umbrellas colliding, but all she could see was him, the stranger who somehow felt like a reflection she didn't ask for. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. Not today. Her pulse stumbled. Then why are you? He looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing whether she deserved the truth. His cracked watch ticked unevenly between them. Because I'm not done either. Claire swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. Done with what? He didn't answer. Instead, his gaze flicked to the gray suitcase by her leg, the same kind her father had once carried. Lightning flashed beyond the station glass, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw it in his eyes too, recognition. Maybe not of her face, but of her pain. The train doors beeped in warning, ready to close. She could step inside, disappear, pretend she hadn't seen him. Or she could stay, and let old wounds reopen. For one breathless second, the world balanced on that choice. Then, the lights flickered, the train lurched, and Claire's suitcase slipped from her hand, spilling open across the wet platform. Photographs, letters, a broken wristwatch tumbling into the puddles. He looked down at the watch. His expression changed. Quietly, almost trembling, he said, Where did you get that? The thunder answered for her. The platform had emptied, leaving only echoes, footsteps fading into the rain, the hum of vending machines, and the dull thud of Claire's heart trying to find its rhythm again. The lights above flickered weakly, casting shadows that trembled on the soaked tiles. Her suitcase lay open at her feet, its contents bleeding into the puddles. The broken watch glinted faintly between them. He picked it up carefully, as if afraid it might shatter further. The rain rolled down his fingers, tracing the lines of an old scar that vanished beneath his sleeve. For a long time, he didn't speak. Claire could barely breathe. That watch, it belonged to my father. His hand stilled. His jaw tightened, eyes darkening in recognition, or was it guilt? The silence between them deepened until it felt like the air itself was listening. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. Where did you see it before? Tell me. He exhaled slowly, as if each word would cost him. Some people carry more than just bags, he said. They carry silence and things they wish they'd never found. Her throat burned. The rain pressed harder against the station glass, thunder rolling somewhere distant. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, she looked down at her reflection in the wet floor. Her face was pale, eyes swollen from holding back everything she'd never said. Around them, two elderly women whispered as they passed, eyes darting from the spilled suitcase to Claire's trembling form. Their pity stung more than words. One murmured, "Poor girl, lost or left, who knows which is worse?" Claire turned away quickly, her hands shaking as she began stuffing her belongings back into the case. She didn't want to look at him. Didn't want to see the way he held that watch, as though it belonged to both of them. Her fingers brushed the photograph of her parents, edges soft from years of being touched. Her voice came out small. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything." He looked up then, and for the first time, she saw something crack behind his calm. "Don't I?" he whispered. Lightning flashed, brief, blinding, and she saw the grief in his eyes mirror her own. It wasn't a stranger's pain. It was familiar. Terrifyingly familiar. Claire stepped back, her heels slipping slightly on the wet tile. She nearly turned to leave, to board the next train, to vanish from this moment forever. But something anchored her. One last look, one last question unsaid. He extended his hand, the broken watch resting in his palm. "Maybe," he said quietly, "it's time it found its way home." Her breath hitched. Between them, the air thickened with everything neither dared to confess. And in that unspoken space, just before the train's whistle cried out, their wounds began to tremble toward the truth. The rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind was heavier than before. Claire stood frozen, staring at the broken watch, still resting in his hand. The seconds twitched unevenly, alive again, somehow, as though refusing to die quietly. She finally reached for it, fingers brushing his. The touch sent a pulse of something through her, something she couldn't name. But before she could speak, he pulled back. "You shouldn't carry this," he said softly. "It only brings ghosts closer." Claire frowned. "You said it should find its way home." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "I meant to her home." The word struck her like a jolt. "Her." He reached into his coat, pulling out a folded document, wrinkled, rain-soaked. She recognized the logo instantly. Whitman and Vale Industries. Her father's company. Or what used to be, before everything fell apart. She felt the ground tilt beneath her. "How do you have that?" He hesitated, then met her eyes with a weight that stopped her breath. "Because I own it now." The world seemed to narrow around her, the flicker of lights, the soft hum of electricity, her reflection trembling in the puddle at their feet. "You," she started, voice cracking. "You took everything from us." "No," he said quietly. "Your father did that to himself." Her mind reeled back to the letter she'd found months ago, her father's confession that someone had betrayed him, someone inside the company. She had come to Havenfield looking for answers, a name, a reason why her family had been destroyed. And now, standing here, she found both and neither. She looked down again at the watch, the crack across its face glinting like a scar. "It belonged to my father," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, it belonged to my daughter." The words froze her. She looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer, rain dripping from his coat. "Your father's car, the one that crashed that night? My daughter was in it too." His voice broke slightly. "She didn't make it." Claire's breath caught. The memory of that night, the flashing lights, the unanswered questions, crashed back all at once. The red scarf around her neck suddenly felt suffocating, too vivid, too cruel. Her father's words echoed faintly in her mind. "You don't have to be the strongest, Claire. Just be the one who survives." But survival no longer felt enough. The truth had carved something deeper inside her, a wound she couldn't walk away from. She turned slowly toward the station corridor, where a door marked "Office Access," authorized only, blinked faintly under the emergency light. Her pulse steadied. This wasn't just about finding answers anymore. It was about deciding what she'd do with them. And as she stepped through that door, everything that came before began to burn. The narrow corridor smelled of rain and dust. The hum of the station faded behind Claire as she stepped through the metal door, her soaked shoes squeaking against the linoleum floor. The air felt too still, like time itself was holding its breath. She followed the flicker of the emergency lights until they reached a small office at the end. The nameplate on the door read Elias Vale. Her chest tightened. The man's last name. He was already there, standing by the window overlooking the tracks. His coat hung loosely on his frame now, and in the reflection of the glass, she saw the faintest tremor in his hand. The broken watch rested on the table between them, its tick louder in the silence than any heartbeat. Claire's voice came out low, strained. "You could have told me the truth from the beginning." Elias didn't turn. "And would you have listened?" "I would have tried." He smiled faintly, but it wasn't kindness, it was exhaustion. "I didn't come here for revenge, Claire. I came to return what was left." She stepped closer, anger and confusion tangling inside her. "You own everything my father built. You destroyed him. And now you want to play savior." He finally faced her. His eyes were wet, but not weak. "Your father built his empire on lies, and my daughter was one of them. I didn't destroy him. Truth did." The words landed sharp, but behind them was something unexpected, sorrow. Her gaze dropped to the watch again. The crack across its face caught the dim light, almost glowing. "Why keep it?" she whispered. He exhaled. "Because I couldn't let go. Every tick reminded me of what I lost and who I became trying to make sense of it." She swallowed hard. "Then why give it to me?" He looked at her as though searching for the right pain to hand over. "Because you remind me of her. The same stubborn quiet. The same way she used to wait for trains that never came." The room seemed to shrink around them, thick with the ache of two stories that had collided too late. Claire took the watch in her palm. It was still warm from his hand. Her reflection wavered in its cracked glass, a ghost of herself, split in two. She could destroy it, and everything her father had left behind, and call it justice. But instead, she reached for the drawer in the desk, opening it gently. Inside lay a folded handkerchief embroidered with the initials EV. She placed the watch inside and closed the drawer. Some things aren't meant to be carried anymore. Elias stared at her, something breaking quietly in his eyes. "Then what will you carry now?" Claire turned toward the window. Outside, the storm had passed. The same train platform stretched before her, but now she was on the other side of the glass, watching others wait to leave. She breathed in slowly. "Nothing," she said. "Maybe that's the point." Elias nodded once, as if understanding that silence was the only ending they deserved. As she walked away, the ticking faded until it was gone. And though she didn't look back, the thought lingered like mist over steel tracks. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. Morning broke softly over the station, sunlight spilling through the high glass windows like forgiveness. The air smelled of wet iron and fresh coffee, and for the first time in years, Claire didn't feel the weight of waiting. She sat on the same bench where it had all begun, her small gray suitcase beside her, the red scarf folded neatly in her lap. The scarf no longer felt like a wound. It was simply fabric now, soft and still, carrying traces of who she used to be. Across the platform, the office door stood closed. Inside that desk drawer, under the hum of quiet machines and old regrets, the broken watch rested, still and final. Its tick had stopped sometime in the night. She hadn't gone back for it. She didn't need to. People passed her in waves, strangers with stories stitched into their steps. A young couple laughed as they juggled coffee cups. An older man wiped his glasses and waited patiently for the next train. Life kept moving, the way it always did. Only now, she was ready to move with it. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass partition across from her. For once, she didn't flinch at what she saw. There were lines of exhaustion, yes, but beneath them, something stronger, quieter. Acceptance. She remembered Elias's words from the night before. Some people carry more than just bags, they carry silence. He was right. She had carried silence long enough. Hers, her father's, even his. But silence changes when you stop running from it. It turns into space. Into breath. The train rolled into the platform, humming like an invitation. She rose slowly, tucking the red scarf into her bag. Her movements were unhurried, grounded, as though time finally belonged to her again. At the door, she paused, watching the city beyond the glass brighten under the morning light. A thought surfaced, gentle and unspoken. Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. The quiet understanding between two broken people who saw the same shadow and didn't turn away. Claire smiled faintly, not from joy but from peace. The kind that comes when the story doesn't end with revenge, but with release. She stepped onto the train, the sound of the doors closing behind her like a heartbeat returning to rhythm. Outside, the station faded into distance, a blur of motion and memory. The cracked watch, the rain, the faces, all dissolved into something softer, something forgiven. And as the train curved toward the horizon, sunlight streaking across her window, a single thought lingered, one that would echo long after her story ended. Maybe healing isn't about forgetting who hurt you, but remembering who you chose to become after.